Welcome everyone to my video series on the heroine's journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and I'm happy to have you on board. I wonder if you're still coming with me, heroines, as I continue this stationary journey, this stationary pilgrimage, traveling in place journey to understand more about the sacred feminine. I have so many books open before me. Jean Markel's The Great Goddess, Reverence of the Divine Feminine from the Paleolithic to the Present. Sherry Ruth Anderson and Patricia Hopkins' The Feminine Face of God. The Unfolding of the Sacred in Women. Karen Tate's Sacred Places of the Goddess, 108 destinations, each of which I would love that she would be here and take me with her. Elaine Pagels, the scholar on the Gnostic Gospels. Joseph Campbell's Goddesses, Mysteries of the Divine Feminine. And that's actually an anthology from the collected works of Joseph Campbell, edited by Saffron Rossi. And then, of course, Maureen Murdoch's The Heroine's Journey. I have clearly gone in over my head, way over my head with this topic because it's huge, but that's okay. I'm going to take it in small steps. I'm going to give you kind of today a high-level chronological exploration. And I think about all those people that restore homes on television, and you see them in all different states of disarray. And usually at the beginning, it's overwhelming and you're right there with them and it's okay. So think of this kind of like that I've invited you on this journey with me. And I'm not quite sure where we're going or what's next, but I had this sense for sure that I wanted to talk about how we lost touch. Where did the goddess go? If woman was the sacred feminine, why is it reemerging and where did it go? So I tried to touch base with that today. So here's what I came up with. Very high level encyclopedia.com goddess worship overview. The emergence of virtually every major civilization was associated in some way with the great goddess. So the fact that it was so widespread, this phenomenon, it actually remains unbroken from Paleolithic times. And perhaps she went underground for a while, but there was always a culture, a society that still worship some form of the great goddess. So you know that we have artifacts that trace the beginnings of the worship of a goddess to 25,000 years ago. And some people feel that it's even longer than that. Some goddess statues were found in France, and they're estimated to be 32,000 years old. And that particular one is carved from reindeer antler and is depicted as pregnant. And these images, these statues that we have of the goddess are called Venuses. And their breasts and their loins are very emphasized, overemphasized, because that was the power that she had, that she was seen to possess. Her reproductive and nourishing aspects, she gave life. This is how life came on earth. So these were idols that were worshipped. In fact, they didn't have feet on them. So it's conjectured that they probably stood against a wall like they were part of a shrine. Joseph Campbell says, nature has given to women this power. So she becomes, as it were, a manifestation, the signification of the mystery of nature itself. Because it seemed to our very early ancestors, as they sought to understand the world around them, that it was the female that provided the means to survive. and she gave birth and provided sustenance. Those Paleolithic early thinkers felt that the divine source then must be female. So from that, the matrilineal societies developed where kinship was based on the female line instead of the way it is most around the world today on the father's side. So it may also correlate with a social system in which a person is identified with their mother's lineage, and which can involve the inheritance of property through the mother instead of through the father. So, and also, matrilocal society was popular, or was common back then, was the practice, because then the marriage, the husband would go to live with his wife's community, not the other way around. So goddess-centered worship remains strong in cultures. Campbell tells us this was primarily in plant-focused cultures. And he tells us that the recorded history, now writing was invented in the Neolithic and early Bronze Age of the goddess, belongs primarily to the planting cultures. And their primary food was the plant world. So the female is associated with the goddess Earth, who gives forth the fruits of earth and gives life and nourishment to the world. There were three main centers of these planting cultures: Southeast Asia, Southeast Europe, the Near East, four, and Middle America. And what was she called? What was the name of the goddess who was worshipped? The earliest appearance of her in the Roman Empire, which was still there, 2nd century CE, goddess of many names, she was called initially. Egypt, it was Isis. Babylon, Ishtar, and Sumer, Inanna. Oh, and the Western Semites, Astarte. So these, again, were planting and animal domestication cultures. It's believed women were the first to cultivate plants. But then things changed around 4000 BC. The first band influx of Indo-European tribes came down from the Russian steppes, the sub-Russian steppes. They were a male-oriented warrior culture, and their big impact it was felt most strongly around 1200 BC at the time of the Trojan War. So they were masculine, war-oriented peoples. Their mythology was brought by the descendants of the old plain hunters, and their whole culture was based on war, and they had horses, and it changed the culture. And the cult of the goddess began to be wiped out, or began to be transitioned and incorporating some of these new male gods, except in the Aegean, it stayed around until about 1500 BC. But eventually it was repressed. And actually the early Christian church helped to do that, where initially in the very early Christian church, women were treated as equals. And Elaine Pagel tells us about her in her book, The Gnostic Gospels. She says, from the year 200, we have no evidence for women taking prophetic, priestly, and episcopal roles among Orthodox churches, where this had happened before. She says this is an extraordinary development, considering that in its earliest years, the Christian movement showed a remarkable openness toward women. She tells us that it was a type of social transition, as well as the diversity of cultural influences in Greece and Asia Minor, there were still cults of the Great Mother. In Egypt, women had actually gone into medicine in the first century AD, independent. They were educated. They also practiced in the arts. But then an early Christian author from Carthage in the Roman province of Africa, Tertullian, he lived between 155 BCE to 220 BCE. He sort of laid down the law. It's not permitted, he said, for a woman to speak in the church, nor is it permitted for her to teach, nor to baptize, nor to offer the Eucharist, nor to claim for herself a share in any masculine function, least of all in priestly office. So that belief, this position, this policy has really dominated the majority of the Christian church for nearly 2,000 years. Pope Paul VI in 1977 stated a woman cannot be a priest because our Lord was a man. But despite all of that, the goddess didn't disappear. She really went underground. That belief in a feminine, female, nurturing being was still strong. And in AD 431, at the Council of Ephesus, which used to be the goddess Artemis's city, that council declared Mary, the mother of Jesus, to be truly Theotokos. It's the Greek word for the mother of God. So that was raising her up. So by the 13th century, all the cathedrals are then built in her name, Notre Dame. She is not worshipped, but she's venerated. So you approach God through the mother, appeal to the mother. So she's almost a goddess. So Karen Tate writes that we see the impact of goddess spirituality still on the rise in all phases of life. This is now in our century. The Vatican publicly began taking notice at a summit in the summer of 2004. It issued an apology for the Inquisition and has corrected misinformation about Mary Magdalene. Women continue to challenge for their rightful place within the leadership of the church, and they're getting it. So Jean Shinoda Bolen writes, on the eve of a new millennium, something momentous is happening. We can see the goddess re-emerging everywhere as concern for and the re-sacralization of the planet, as a new appreciation for the feminine aspect of divinity, as an awareness of the sacredness and wisdom of the body. Images of goddesses are coming forth in dreams, in art, and in poetry. Once again, the earth is seen as a living organism, as Gaia, the Greek goddess of the earth. And that's Jean Shinoda Bolen in Crossing to Avalon, a woman's midlife quest for the sacred feminine. So what a trajectory from 25,000 BCE to today. Woman was worshipped as a god, as a goddess. She was magical. She created life and nurtured life. She bled and didn't die. The Venus statues show us she was revered and worshipped. Then the warrior gods from the warrior people infiltrated, and the patriarchal system was established and celebrated. Also, men learned that they indeed had a role in creation too, that their sperm played into this whole thing. So it wasn't an awareness early on. So initially, they didn't know that they had that role. In fact, they believed it was man then, who was made in the image of God. And woman, then, what did she do? Well, she was the one that got mankind, humankind, kicked out of the Garden of Eden for disobeying God, that she would be forever punished then. In childbirth, she would always have pain. And that was the origin story in Genesis. So the goddess seemed to have departed. But Mary, the mother of Jesus, was declared Theotokos, the mother of God, and cathedrals were built on the same site as the goddess worship sites. So people knew that those sites were sacred, and that would be a good place to put the cathedrals. In The Power of Myth, Joseph Campbell said, myths of the great goddess teach compassion for all living beings. There you come to appreciate the real sanctity of the earth itself because it is the body of the goddess. The body of the goddess is our body too. The ancients understood that. She gives life, and so do we. And that goes for men and women. So again, this is always the balancing of the feminine and masculine in everybody, no matter what their sex is. The feminine then never really left, because how could it? It's the energy of our mother, the earth, which used to be recognized and worshipped much more by our ancestors, but we've forgotten. We don't practice the way we used to. Science, as useful and helpful as it has been, has aided in the forgetting. We've lost our connection. We honor the man-made far more than what nature makes for us. It's not too late, though. The feminine is reemerging. It is reminding us of our connection to the earth, an intimate connection. Nature is reminding us. I, for one, being one of the people that up here in Maine was exposed to 20 below temperatures last weekend, which got to be 50 below with the wind chill factor. We are out of balance. So the feminine aspect is growing stronger as more voices call to remind us of the sacredness of the planet and the need for balancing the feminine with the masculine. Both energies are needed. Just the fact that I'm here talking to you about this, which is a subject I have so much to learn about, but it's a sign that something is coming up from within for all of us. I wouldn't have spoken this way even a year ago. My study of the heroine's journey led me to study the sacred feminine. As I wondered what had happened to women, how could we not be proud and confident when we had inherited this amazing and transformative journey path that we had been walking? And why would we accept this as our heritage when for most of our time on this earth we have been demoted to the back, not included? But we are the key. If we can regain our feminine understanding of how integral we are to the resurgence of nature, then maybe our voices will get strong. And I also came to see that it's one thing to teach about the heroine's journey, how this has been in our literature, even back in the time when the goddess was still worshipped, way back in the Aegean world, when Homer was telling us about the Trojan War and the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's one thing to know the pattern and to know how to navigate it and to be accustomed to the milestones because they help you then feel more secure as you go through life. But it's also important to talk about how you are walking on that path, which is how you are walking on the earth. How does the heroine do that? Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, and member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, talks about reciprocity. She says the earth gives us air, the power of wind and sun and water. She says we are bound by a covenant of reciprocity with the earth. Plant breath for animal breath, winter and summer, predator and prey, grass and fire, night and day, living and dying. Reciprocity. She calls it the dance of the giveaway and reminds us to remember that the earth is a gift that we must honor and pass on. So if the earth is giving us such gifts, then what do we give back to the earth? How will we honor Earth's giveaway is her question. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for being with me on my learning journey, my learning heroine's journey. It's good to have your company, and I hope you will continue and watch the next video too.